I got to this place where I had nothing to lose, right? I'm used to being broke in the city. I'm used to having people not take me seriously. I'm used to having this and that. I'm used to being put down. So if I can't get any lower, there's this incredible freedom in that, but there's also this incredibly sort of like resilient underdog responsibility that I feel. And it's kind of, I feel like what, you know, Michelle Obama used to say about adversity is like, you face adversity from a young age, you come out into the world so much better equipped because you have the stamina and this muscle that's been exercised your entire life that's used to looking at a no and being like, okay, day in the life, let me figure this out. So, I mean, in terms of emotional balance, I haven't gotten that figured out yet. I mean, it takes all of me, all of my heart, all of my soul, all of my mind to try and problem solve and look back at history and like what worked and what didn't, and like take constructive criticism, all of that. And, you know, in terms of producing work when it's just cutting us a check, you know, like the thing that keeps me going is that like Robin Hood spirit. It's like, okay, maybe I am taking money from this big corporation, and that is like, on the surface level may feel like I'm perpetuating some type of capitalist structure that I'm trying to dismantle, but really when I take that money and pay for an entirely femme set of like QPOC folks, that feels important, and it keeps me working that much harder. I mean, it's also something that I don't even really think about. It just happens.
Clearly the money you're using in the space is to serve your community.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. What emotionally keeps you going because you are a server to your community?
Yeah, I feel
The question there is, why do you feel like you are indebted to your community? What do they do for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm indebted to my community because without it, I probably wouldn't be here. Yeah, I wouldn't be here. Like, it's being a person who's pushed to their edge, who's told and criminalized for who they are, waking up in the morning just for taking a breath. Like, it's just like, when you find the community that look at you and see you and love you and support you and allow you to make mistakes and allow you to grow, I mean, like, come on, like, you know, maybe it's just because I wasn't used to that growing up. I didn't think it was possible, you know, like, being caught in between identities, being caught in between social norms, being caught in between different nationalities, between sexualities, like, you know, it's really, on a good day, I feel like, well, you know what, I'm self-defining, so it doesn't matter. Like, I am who I am because I say I am, but we are human. I am human. And so there are often a lot of days where that energy that usually goes like out like this is projected onto you, and you're like, oh, God, like, I don't feel like I'm worth it. So then to come into a space every day, especially to come into a work environment every day where you just get to feel seen and you get to feel like you belong, like, that is something I never want to live without. So if what it takes for me to get there is to like hustle and find money, like, I'm just gonna do it because we need it to survive, really. Yeah.
That leads into my next question. Why is traditional funding not an option for you?
Well, you know, I mean, take a look at NPR, right? It's a great example. Like, they don't want to have, you know, a big conglomerate or corporation funding or profiting from the purpose of news, which is, you know, unfiltered, fact-based information, right? You become a servant. You become a servant to the community that is helping you. You become an employee of their needs, which is how, you know, policy and politics is supposed to work. So NPR is a good example of that in the private sector, and I think that that's really where we're coming from. We're not reinventing the wheel here, you know? We're at a place with our company where we need to grow. I could go to a VC and be indebted to his or her, you know, bottom line requirements, and I could go to a bank that is run by like Citibank and they're indebted to whatever investors that they have, right? Turning to our community at first was like, oh, isn't that so arrogant to ask the people that need this help to help us? But at the end of the day, what I really see it as a promise and as a accountability to the right motivation, which is not bottom line dividends and stock market exchanges. It's about helping those who need help. Really, Holyrad is not about projecting any aesthetic on another person. It's about you coming with your own uniqueness and being plugged into something that will allow that uniqueness to flourish. So I don't want any, you know, if we were branded in a specific way with a certain color and a certain palette, that would limit and project a lot of things onto folks. But Our black and white is sort of like, here's a simple solution where you can just come in, be yourself, and we will say yes to that.
So let's talk more about that yes mentality.
Yeah.
Why is it so important for everyone to feel boundless in this space?
Ooh, I mean, it's because I fundamentally believe that every roadblock and every obstacle is an opportunity for clear communication and creative catalysts. Like, when you go to the bank and you're like, hey, here's my business plan, can I get a loan? And they're like, no, because you're not a citizen, you're not this, you're not that, you're not that. And it's not like they then follow up with a question, however, here's how we can get you to that level. And I feel like that's really what I'm trying to kind of define as our version of yes, is that if you come to us with an idea, we have the expertise and the experience to be like, no to this execution, but yes to who you are. And so how do we turn that no in terms of it hitting roadblocks, so, oh, I don't have enough money, or we don't have this, or we don't have space, and use it as a catalyst to find a solution to make sure that projects like that can exist, right? Because an artist's job is to be purely themselves. Our job as a production company and a creative accelerator and a community and a resource center is to be like, yes, and here's how. So every answer that society normally gives you no, we will just say yes and.
What was the best moment in Holyrad?
Whoa, wow, that's so hard. It's like picking your favorite child. I find joy in just opening up the doors and seeing the light shine on these white floors and know that every single piece of furniture and every single little paint mark that we have is because we did it the right way on our own terms. That is a regular joy that I receive. I mean, even on a cloudy day like today, it's still just like like we did that. Another favorite moment that I had was when Saskia came to me and she was like, I don't want to go back to school, and me telling her like, that's totally okay and here's why. Or you coming to me and being like, I don't know how I'm going to be involved here, but I know that I need to be here because it allows me to be who I am, right? It's just sitting 5 minutes ago and watching Joe, who I met less than a year ago, who is in a completely different space and is like just all of this genius and self-worth is like bubbling through his conversation with you. Like all of that I know is just, it wasn't that much work for me. It was literally just looking at someone and being like, hey, you're worth it and you're wonderful. And like, if that's all it takes, looking back on that girl, right? Looking back on that 21-year-old girl, like she already knew this. She already knew it. She knew that it needed to exist, and she just put it into something being useful for herself, and then realized that something useful for your own sake is not useful unless you're giving it to everybody else. It's like an old school mentality, I think, in our industry in particular, is like my black book, my context, my lighting setup, my resources, all of that information is what makes me valuable. Therefore, I will not share it because I'm inside of a capitalist system. You can still make money when you share that information. In fact, you can probably make more. You can breed abundance in other places. We're meant to plant trees and cut down fruit at the same time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's really not something that I can take ownership or authorship for. It's just called Mother Nature. It's regenerative. I just think that we've got disconnected into recognizing that being the norm and how it's supposed to go. And we've forgotten, and we're fearful of, oh, if I share this piece of information, like they're gonna compete with me and shoot me down. If you believe that, you'll continue that. But I believe otherwise. And the only reason why it's working is because other people believe it too.